4:26 p.m., one of the snipers texted, "You see me go out with my rifle, so he knows you guys are up there." By 5:14 p.m., they grew suspicious.
He was looking up and down the building and just wandering around. It just seemed out of place.
Greg Nichols says he snapped these photos of the shooter and shared them in a group text to local snipers on the scene.
I assumed that there would be somebody coming out to, speak with this individual.
We have to assume that when he put that information out to command, that command took that information and did something with it.
It's unclear if their concerns reached members of Trump's Secret Service detail. The Washington Post reports the agents complained they were not made aware of the warnings.
We were supposed to get a face-to-face briefing with the Secret Service snipers whenever they arrived, and that never happened. So I think that was probably a pivotal point where I started thinking things were wrong, because that never happened, and we had no communication with the Secret Service.
It's really looking like things are headed towards exactly my initial suspicions. If you remember my original video, my thoughts were, I'm thinking there was a failure, a communication failure with the local law enforcement. I suspect that it's two to tango. So the Secret Service, who has a long track record of problems, I suspect there's something that they did wrong as well. For example, that officer mentions that they were supposed to do a briefing they didn't do. However, let's talk about accountability. Now, I don't work in law enforcement, but I work in a high stakes environment where small mistakes can have severe consequences. High pressure, you got to be precise. And, we're not even dealing with life and death situations. However, the way those officers dealt with the suspicious guy would be unacceptable by our standards in terms of how we deal with issues. So in that scenario, based on my training professionally, again, not law enforcement at all, not even close. In that scenario where they see a suspicious person, this is a high stakes situation, you have a president speaking there, right? You wouldn't just, first of all, you would take full accountability, right? Yes, you're gonna notify and escalate, which is what they claim to have done. They radioed and said there's this guy who's suspicious. Now, critical detail, who did they radio? Now, I know there was a shared channel between multiple law enforcement agencies, but we can't assume that they were on that particular channel. They might have used another channel to notify their own team. Maybe they wanted to talk internally before escalating it. So maybe, for all we know, they notified their command. And what did their command do with it? I don't know. But again, the way you deal with high stakes stuff, even that's not acceptable. If they radioed their command and they didn't get anything back, it was to them to step it up and be like, hey guys, what are we doing? What are we doing? Take accountability. If no one's moving, you go follow the guy. Like, if you see the guy, why aren't you going out to follow the guy? And if your protocol is you're supposed to stay where you are and you call out to command and they're not responding, right? You first of all, you're aggressive. You make them respond. Maybe it's a radio issue, so you get up on the phone, you call them on the phone. You can't get through. Then, based on make an assessment based on the risk level, you might be the one to be like, hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to investigate. Right? You cannot afford to let something slip through. Right? That's how you operate when you're dealing with high stakes situations. So this kind of talk about assuming, you don't assume anything, right? You shouldn't assume they're going to send somebody out. No. You see somebody suspicious at that event, you need to escalate and make sure that whoever you're escalating to is on top of it. And if they're not on top of it, you got to push and push to get them on top of it. And if they're not on top of it, they're not responding, or whatever it is, you go out and you investigate and you take care of it, right? So that whole explanation doesn't cut it. Also, they referenced that there was supposed to be a face-to-face meeting with the Secret Service, and that never happened. And that was the first indicator that something was wrong. Listen, man, that kind of logic would not cut it professionally for me, for my work. I would not get away with having that sort of a passive. That's not how you operate in a high stakes environment, right? If the Secret Service said there's going to be a face-to-face meeting, right? First of all, confirm when and where the meeting is going to be. Then the day of the event, it's still not scheduled. You follow up like, hey, what's the deal with the face-to-face meeting, right? And if there's supposed to be a meeting, you ensure that it happens. Notice how he just says there was supposed to be a face-to-face meeting and it never happened. No more details. What does that mean? Did the Secret Service just forget? Did you inquire about it? Was it scheduled at a time and you went there and they didn't show up? Like, what exactly happened? Did you guys just simply hear that there's going to be a face-to-face meeting and then you show up at the day of the event and then the meeting doesn't happen and you're just kind of like, oh, okay, all right, whatever. Like, really? These officers are way too passive. Because, for example, it shouldn't just be the Secret Service trying to have a meeting. They should want to have a meeting, right? If the Secret Service didn't even mention anything about a meeting, they should have been the one to say, hey guys, we should coordinate, right? You have multiple law enforcement agencies and you're doing this high stakes, detail with a former president. And you're just going to just show up and just, oh, I'll be here. And, what do you think I guess we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Is there going to be a meeting? I don't know. Like, really? If I were a senior member, especially of the Beaver Police Department, I would have ensured that a meeting occurred. I don't need Secret Service to tell me that, oh, let's have a face-to-face meeting, right? I know that that's how you coordinate, especially things like this, right? We want to be very clear on what everyone's doing, what the expectations are of each team, where people are, how many people, like everything needs to be clear. You cannot have any confusion. There cannot be any stone left unturned. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people online are going to jump and say, again, this rhetoric about why they didn't let Trump go on the stage. This guy being suspicious is not a reason, in my view, to not let Trump go on the stage, because there's going to be suspicious people all the time, right? It depends on what they observed, to be honest. So if they saw him with the rangefinder, now that's a high level of suspicion. So it's kind of a case by case basis. You got to make a judgment call. But if it's just some guy looking weird and he's looking at the building, that's not, I don't think, enough to not have Trump go out on the stage. It depends on whether you've established that someone is a threat. Again, there's going to be suspicious people all the time. The idea of him speaking and then you see somebody looks weird and you're like, get the president down. You're like, no, there has to be levels, right? There's levels of where it's kind of like, okay, let's investigate. Let's see what this is. What is this? What is this? What is this? And then when you cross a certain threshold, it's kind of like, I don't know what this is, but it looks bad enough that we need to take preemptive action. Let's pause, right? Don't put the president on the stage, or president's on the stage. Let's pull him back for a second. This looks suspicious enough that we want to investigate, right? And then there's a certain level where it looks suspicious enough, like you see a bunch of random people coming out of a van with guns in an area where, you know, there's no one that you know who's there, you know which law enforcement is there, and there's not any of those law enforcement. That's kind of like, it could be maybe a Secret Service team. There's a communication issue you're not aware of, so it's not 100% that it's a threat. But it's suspicious enough that it's like a highly likely threat to where it's kind of like, okay, let's aggressively like yank the president off the stage. He's definitely not going on the stage, blah, 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 right? And then there's a level of like a guy on the roof and he's firing shots or something. But anyway, so let's continue to see what we find out. I really want to hear about who knew what when, right? Who was the first person who saw something suspicious and what did they do? You can't just tell me like you radioed command. What command? Your command? The shared command? Like what, how did you use your radio? Did you call on the phone? Did somebody respond to you? What were you told? What was the protocol? What did you discuss? What did you intend to do? Like there must have been a game plan of like, if this happens, we do that or whatever. You have your training. Like what are your rules of engagement? I need more details. I need a timestamp log of all the communications of everyone involved in this. What happened when, who said what to who, what was the response, right? These are critical details that we need to know before we can assess really what happened here. But obviously, no matter what I say, people are gonna keep jumping to the, they let it happen and this was a setup and an inside job, blah, blah, blah. And who knows? It could very well be, but there's no reason whatsoever to jump to that conclusion, right? This could very well be explained by incompetence. I think mostly from the local PD, but I'm pretty sure Secret Service probably has their hand in it as well. It's probably a combined effort or a team effort, right? So let's slow our rolls, slow down, relax, don't jump to conclusions. Wait until we get the necessary details before we make an assessment of what we think really happened. This is the Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.